Okay, it looks like we're on and recording.
All right. So I will call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Canos,
Here.
Mr. Rambelang,
Here.
Ms. McCready.
Oops, she's muted.
She's here.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
I'm here.
Mr.
We're out of
McCready is
practice.
absent. Mr. Rivero,
Here.
Mr. Ruse,
Here.
Ms. Zamara.
Here.
Hey, notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News and Courier News, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 14th, 2023. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so welcome to the January 16th, 2024 meeting of the Bernardsville Borough Council. This meeting is being conducted on Zoom, so it's not in public. So it will be recorded, yes. Members of the public will be allowed to speak during the open session and during we're not having formal public hearings this time, so don't have to worry about that. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, which will be monitored and enforced by the borough clerk. Comments containing offensive, profane, or indecent language or language constituting hate speech will not be permitted. All speakers shall state their names and addresses before making their comments. And failure of the governing body to provide a recording of this meeting will not invalidate this meeting or any action taken, including but not limited to any adoption of an ordinance, resolution, or motion, which we're not doing. Just to kind of say what we're doing now, this is a new format. We would have been sitting in the little conference room next to the courtroom. It's more of an informal work session so that we talk about issues that we will need to take action on at the next meeting. So this is more for the council and the public to be more familiar with the background of things that we're going to vote on later, and to let us kind of hash it out first and be familiar with it. So it was a system we did many years ago. I guess when Sandy Jones was here, right? Yeah. So we're trying to get back into that so that everyone is more familiar with things before they show up for action. So right now we have an open session. So if anyone from the public would like to be heard, please raise your hand and Anthony will unmute you and then just give us your name and address. And he'll also have a little clock in his window there. We seeing any hands? Can't see my whole.
No, I'm not seeing anybody right now. No.
Okay, and I will close the public session. Moving on to discussion items. First is construction code fee schedule, which is an proposed amendment to ordinance 2023-1987. And I believe that was just an omission on the first round, or Nancy, if you want to explain that.
Yeah, there were two omissions that we inadvertently left off. One is an increase for alteration work, which we're requesting an increase from $24 to $30 per $1,000 of estimated cost. The other is a water heater, which I believe went from $85 to $100, if I'm remembering correctly. Then there are some language changes that the DCA required.
Okay, so then that will be an introduction of the ordinance at our next meeting.
Yeah, if anybody had any questions about it or wanted to discuss it now.
When we do a water heater, do they come out and actually inspect it? I've never had one done.
They do inspect it because it is plumbing and fire.
Okay.
I just had one done, so I'm waiting for the inspection.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I know. The next is a proposed ordinance concerning affordable housing set-asides. And if you recall, what we've done with some of the smaller projects that have come up is ask them to contribute to, because if they've only building 6 units, it's kind of hard to do a 15% affordable. So we've asked them to contribute instead to our affordable housing fund. But we have to waive the ordinance every time we do that because it's not in our language. So I believe, John, if you want to, Jack, you want to explain kind of what we're doing with this?
Yes, as the mayor said, our current ordinance applies to all developments of 5 or more units and requires that they have a 15% or 20%, depending on whether they're rental or for sale, for affordable housing. And as the mayor said, we've had several developers come in. One, I think, had 8 units. And the other part of the ordinance is that it got rounded up regardless. So that one came in, it would have been 1.2 units, but it got rounded up to 2. So it ended up being like a 33% set aside. And you really can't put that number of affordable units in a development that small. So this ordinance does 3 things. It provides that for developments between 6 and 10 units, they may make a payment in lieu. 2, it changes the rounding to the standard formula of anything above a half gets rounded up, anything below gets rounded down. And the third thing it does is it codifies the amount of the contribution. What we've done up until now, CGP&H, our Mount Laurel consultants, just took the 2009 COA rule, which is long since expired, which fixed the figure at 147,000, I think, for Region 3, where we're located, and adjusted it for inflation. So I saw one of the other ordinances just had $180,000, which is essentially that number adjusted for inflation through this year, and provided it could be increased depending on future inflation. So the ordinance does those 3 things.
Discussion, anybody?
Hey, Jack, it's Al. So but the 180K is just for 6 to 10 units, is that correct?
Correct.
And what's the rationale of having it that specific? Like, I remember during one of the discussions last year, we said for larger properties, the 180K may not be appropriate, which, we can discuss that, but, the rationale that it starts at 6 and not lower.
Well, because the current ordinance, and we can change that, that's one of the reasons we're discussing it. The current ordinance doesn't apply to developments of 4 or fewer units.
Oh, okay. Got it. So that would be essentially where that's where you would be required to actually provide affordable housing.
That's
right?
correct. Okay. So it just gives them the option of making a payment in lieu for those smaller developments.
So if it's over 10, they don't have the option?
That's right. Although, we could do the same
Again,
thing.
you could still
Depending
waive.
on circumstances, the council could waive that requirement, but we don't want to write too much into the ordinance. It gets so complicated.
Yeah. And I think we seem to get more of those smaller projects.
Yeah, we don't have any big ones on the horizon that aren't 100% affordable anyways.
Yeah.
And Jack, just one more thing. It might just be helpful to get obviously you've tracked this for years about where Bernardsville is in our actual housing commitment versus the affordable housing fund that we have. Like, in other words, the last few projects we've said we prefer the funding rather than the units because we're
Yes.
okay on the units right now. But can you just give us the landscape on that? It'll just be helpful at the beginning of the year for both councils.
Yeah, the rationale for that was the fact that for our scattered sites developments, originally a number of the units were going to be on property the borough owns up on Pine Street by the park, which was actually purchased for affordable housing purposes like 40 years ago.
Mm.
And then when RPM did a title search, they discovered that property was used as substitute property to get Green Acres restrictions lifted from Pine Ridge. No one in the borough knew that. So we can no longer use that property, which we already owned, and had to go out and buy property. The first property we bought after the council considered a number of properties was 33 Bernards, and that ended up costing 2 times because of inflation and the appreciation in the real estate market two times what the estimate was. The original estimate was 700,000. We ended up paying $1.4 million for it. So that's why we were looking to replenish the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to cover the cost of acquiring the properties.
But for was it the third round, fourth round? What round are we on?
We're in the third now. Fourth is coming down the pike, which is going
We
to be a
have, we
disaster.
have all of our third round obligation planned out, committed.
Correct.
Fourth round, we don't know where we're going with that. I'm just curious what the senior housing requirement is for senior affordable.
That's the one good thing in the proposed new bill A4, which raises the senior limit to 33% from 25%. But other than that, the new bill abolishes COA and leaves it to the courts to set the number based on the Mercer County judge's formula, which just slammed towns. I think West Windsor ended up with 1,500 affordable units as an obligation. Princeton ended up with 900 units. So that's the formula. If this bill passes, that's the formula that's going to be used statewide.
Well, fortunately, it didn't survive the lame duck session, so
No,
now they have to start over. But
the rumor is that
They
they'd
won't.
like to adopt it by the end of February. So
really, is that the rumor?
that's what's going around.
Wow. Jeez.
You know, and COA was such a great compromise that the towns accepted it because it had representatives from the builders, from affordable housing, from municipalities, and it worked.
They
But
listened to us.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, at least we got a fair hearing.
What was our our total obligation for the third round? Do you remember? I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah, it was like 248 units, but we got bonuses and credits and things like that. So that's where we were able to lower it to where we did.
Okay. Ah, yeah. All right. So now, any other questions on the affordable?
So
There's only one typo.
oh, okay.
It's just a misspelled word.
You found it? Where is it?
It's kind of halfway through the first page. It just says
Okay.
collect.
What's the word? I'll find it and correct it.
Collect. It says it's missing the C. That's
Oh,
all.
okay. Oh, that's probably from cutting and pasting. Just the last point on this, I did run this by Jessica Caldwell and she approved it in its current form.
Yes, I saw her email. Thank you. Okay, so then we can introduce that at the
Yes.
next meeting. The towing contractors. This
Yeah,
was.
this was at the, oh, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Towing
Okay,
contract.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't, there's a lag.
My phone was
Yeah, this
ringing.
is at the request of the police department. The current standards for being disqualified for criminal convictions was written a number of years ago. And they got an application this year where one of the principals had a conviction for a misdemeanor like 30 years ago, and they didn't think that should be disqualifying. So they rewrote the crimes that will disqualify you. It's basically felonies for certain crimes against persons and property.
So now it says an indictable offense.
That's one of the changes, but some of the other changes, they made it a higher bar before you get disqualified.
Okay. And these are when there's an accident and they have to call a towing company right at that time. They have a list of people they can reach out to.
Yeah, it's a strange system. For some reason, we used to have to bid it, even though we didn't pay for any of this towing. It's all paid by the car owner.
Right.
But then they came up with this alternate system where you could have a rotating list of towing operators who had to qualify. And that's what we do now. So you're right. If there's an accident or a broken down car, these towing operators get called.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, I didn't think it's okay, but this didn't change anything on the insurance requirements that we changed last year.
No. Only the crimes that disqualify you.
Okay, thank you.
And the people who are requesting this change was the police.
Police department, yes. It was Chief Remian and Sergeant Alter, the two I dealt with. But yeah, it was totally initiated by them.
Okay. So that'll be a introduction as well.
Yes.
The qualified purchasing agent responsibilities. Nancy, you want to talk about that?
Yes, I was hoping that you would discuss whether or not you wanted to make a change. The way the law or the way the law was that any contracts between $17,000 and $44,000, the governing body had to adopt a resolution in order to enact the contract. The way it is here is any contract, no matter how much it is. The law did change to say that if you have a QPA, the QPA can sign and enter into any contract up to $44,000. I'm not looking to do that. I'm not asking you to do that. I was hoping that you might come up with some amount that you were comfortable with,
I agree.
$2,000, $5,000, something that you're comfortable with, that I could just do just to make it more efficient and save time for like the smaller things that we don't have to wait, for a council meeting to get done.
Well,
Yeah.
what's the bid threshold?
Sorry.
What's the bid threshold?
Bid threshold is 44,000.
Yeah, but the quote threshold is what, 17?
66.
66,
6,600.
15% of the.
Oh,
bid
6,600. Okay.
Isn't there
So,
some
I
threshold
mean-
at 17,000?
The threshold is 17,500 if you don't have a QPA.
Yeah.
The state law requires, they're called window contracts. The window between 17.5 and 44,000. Even if you had a QPA, the governing body still had to do a resolution. They recently changed that law when they changed the election law, right, Jack? That was part of.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's part of the omnibus
Where they
bill.
got rid of that requirement. So now if the governing body adopts a resolution, the QPA can enter into any contract up to 44,000. But that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, like, if you wanted to pick the quote threshold, which is 6,600, or some lesser amount. I mean, if you're not comfortable with anything, that's fine too, but it just would make it
And we
more.
see everything, right? Like, in other words, it's still,
It
Yeah.
shows up on the bill list.
right.
Yeah.
Here's up the bill.
Well, but besides that, like, take for example, later on in the agenda, you're talking about the Park Mobile contract. Now, you've already talked about that and made like a policy decision of what you want to do with that. But I had to wait in order to enter into the contract until tonight so that you could, well, actually until next week, until you actually adopt the resolution to enter into the contract. And that one's, I forget, like $2,500 or something.
Yes, right.
So it's that kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm not looking to, spend all this money on things that you are not aware of. Probably we would have already talked about it before. This is just to kind of save the time to not have to come back and do a resolution, to enter into the contract.
Yeah, I thought we did have something that was like $6,000 or something already. No?
No,
No, you have, the quote threshold is $6,600.
right.
And in fact, you have a policy here. The state, the local public contracts law requires that you get 2 quotes for anything over $6,600 and under 44,000. Here you have a policy that you have to get 3. So,
Should you use
It's not written
6,600 there?
down. That's just.
No, I
just
think
best
it's in the-
practice.
I think it's in the purchasing manual.
Oh, that may be.
Yeah.
It's not in the ordinance. I think that's left over. I think some people have that misconception. Now, it's interesting, the statute actually says that if you have a QPA shall have the authority to prepare public advertising for bids, to receive bids, and to award contracts permitted pursuant to the other sections that Nancy referred to.
I'm good with 6,600. Anybody else?
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, should
Is
I just
this-
make it up to the amount of the bid threshold or the quote
Yeah,
threshold?
The
Because
quote
it
threshold.
gets increased as time goes by. It started at what, 21,000, I think, Nancy? Back
The
when
quote?
no, the bid threshold.
Bid threshold was 17.5.
Right,
Yeah.
but then when they increased it, they made it 21, but said it would increase. The
Yeah.
state could increase it without changing the statute every year. So it's gone all the way up to 44.
It's right, it's every 5 years they change it.
Right, and the quote threshold is 15% of that, so I'll add
Yeah.
language up to the amount of the
So if we
quote
just,
threshold.
yeah, so it'll change with the states changing it. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So
Okay,
Jack, you'll do an ordinance introduction?
Yep,
next
I'll
meeting?
change that ordinance for next week.
okay. Then we had the HR representative. I think this is mainly for answering questions regarding pensions and retirement, and which get very complicated. And since we don't have a full-time HR person, this would allow you to pick up the phone and call somebody who has the answers rather than dealing with the state.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was something Leslie had requested. We were hoping that you would be willing to do this because this person, whoever we contracted with, would likely have most of these answers off the top of their head and wouldn't have to spend hours on the phone with pensions. Or if they did have to spend time on the phone with pensions, it's not Leslie doing it who's taking her away from doing payroll or doing CFO duties. So we did get one proposal. It was $150 an hour. Leslie did think that she didn't expect it to cost us more than $3,000 for the first year and possibly wouldn't need the person at all for the second year, assuming she picked up all the language, all of the different rules and everything. Things like retirement and pension and health benefit questions are complicated and ever changing. So it's not a bad thing to have somebody available, even after the first year. But I wanted to know what you guys thought about that.
Is the only person that would be using this you or Leslie? Or is it?
It would almost exclusively be Leslie. We would not be giving employees the person's number, to talk to. But if if whoever this person is had to talk to the employee, then they would call the employee and not the other way around, so that we didn't just, continue to
Yeah.
build up our costs.
Okay, great. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
We okay with that? Do we, I don't think we need to, because that'd be a contract under the threshold, so you could just do it.
Okay. Well, but this is the kind of thing I was talking about. Like, I wouldn't just do it. I would talk to you about it first.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
all right. The license plate readers, so for those of you who may have been at some of the public when we had Chief Remian talk about the recent car thefts and some of the burglaries, and one of the suggestions that came out of that was the license plate readers, the cameras to be installed. And Al and Nancy did some more research on that, and as did the chief. So if you want to give us kind of an update on where we are with that, and then I think we're going to have the chief come to the next meeting and give us a more detailed. Al, do you want to?
You can, Nancy, or Gina. I know we talked about a public safety. I also want to defer to you as the chair, but I can add if there's anything.
So basically, these are cameras that are put up at mostly at entrances into town. The point of them is so that if people are driving stolen cars into town, then the police would automatically be alerted, because the license plate reader identifies them on the stolen car list, and then the police can converge towards the area where they came into town. It's an effort to try to reduce, the car thefts that have been happening too frequently in town. The chief has reached out to other communities surrounding us, and I know Bernards has a very aggressive plan for their license plate readers. They obviously have a lot more highways into town than we do. And the towns on the other end have also expressed, the other end of 202 have also expressed an interest in joining together. So my recommendation would be if you ask the chief to get together with the other police chiefs and they could all come up with a concerted effort so that that all the towns could share information with each other, and B, so that we're not all spending the same money, repetitively. In addition, I believe the chief also told us that the state police have cameras as well. And so you can't put your camera within a certain amount of where their cameras are. And as far as the cost goes, it is $1,000 per camera per year to rent.
3,000, I think.
3,000.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, 3,000. I'm sorry,
Great.
3 cameras, $3,000 per camera per year to lease.
I can add, Gina, do you want to say anything? I can add a few things if not.
No, go ahead, Al. You talk with the chief more in depth.
So yeah, first of all, a great summary, Nancy. I just wanted to underline a few things. First of all, like a lot of credit to Chief Remy and the police department for, I think, hearing the community and taking it really seriously. The concerns around the car thefts. It's not, a complete panacea of the issue, but I think it's an important step. A lot of the incidents involve stolen cars or cars that would have been flagged. And if these cars enter our community, the police department will get a notification to individual officers, to the dispatch. I think the most important thing too, I think that you'll hear from the chief next week, is that we're going to propose 3 initially, which may cover it for Bernardsville. But if the other communities around us have the same system too, and we're sort of sharing them, we're creating a really large blanket network covering entrances in and out of all our communities. Really, it's great collaboration with the chief, mayor. I know you've made some phone calls too. I've helped to forge collaborating and sharing of information that could lead to catching, criminals, potential criminals coming into our community. So I think we'll hear a lot more from the chief next week. And I know the last thing I'd say is, considering it was the holiday, kind of record time in my mind for a government to address this. We heard this in the December meeting, and we're already, knock on wood, hopefully going to take action this month. So more to come.
Thank you, Al. Yeah, and I think what the pattern that they described is what happens is these crews steal a kind of a broken down car, drive that into town. So it's a stolen car coming into town. When they find the car they're looking for, they just dump these stolen cars and leave them in the neighborhood. So if we get them before they get that far, that's, first step. So I think that's a great plan, and hopefully we'll get this in place soon. But thank you for your hard work, and to the chief as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question, but I don't know, Gina, did you have something you were saying?
No, I was just saying the chief did a great job in connecting with the other.
Yeah.
Connections. Great.
So thank you also for, I think, the fast work on this. I agree with what you said. I think that the Public Safety Committee and Chief Remy and turning this around so quickly has been great. The question I have is, and this may not be answerable, but do we have any idea for the crimes that have occurred in the past, how effective this would have been at stopping them? And what I mean by that is that if somebody, like the crime you described, Mayor, where someone steals a car, comes into town, just assuming that, like, have these cars that they're bringing into town already been reported stolen, and we think half the time we would have gotten a hit on these? Any kind of statistics and if we don't have it, that's fine. It's still, I think, a great idea. I just am interested.
I do think the chief has statistics on that, Jay. I don't want to put words into his mouth. I think he's gotten feedback on that specific point, not only for Bernardsville, but specifically for other townships and boroughs. We asked a version of that question, and I think he can give you one potential case study. I'm hesitant to do it because he told us at public safety, a specific township that saw a significant reduction based on that. But I would rather him answer it since it kind of came firsthand, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
But I think it's a great question. And
Yeah.
I did like just reading some of those articles, like the Bernardsville News and others. There were cars that had been stolen that had been reported that were driven into Bernardsville, Borough Township, Warren, some of the other surrounding communities that resulted in further stolen cars, as the mayor and Nancy articulated. But it wouldn't, it's not gonna do everything, right?
Oh,
But
absolutely.
it's a
Well,
tool as well.
and unfortunately, I think we'll find like everybody, it just it will evolve, right?
Yeah.
It's just like fraud, you know, they find a different way, unfortunately.
They get more and more sophisticated, don't
Yep.
they? It'd be
Only
nice
we
to
could
put that
yeah.
all that creativity into something useful.
But we would get the notifications from, Bernards
Okay.
Township, other towns. If we work with them, we'll get their notifications. They would get ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's great.
Okay, the Quimby project, yeah, we did not do that appointment at our reorg meeting for the mayor's ad hoc committee. So we'll be putting that on the agenda for the next meeting. And what we've discussed, I think in our prior, is to have this group focus strictly on Quimby and really kind of get that nailed down as to what direction we want to go with that redevelopment. Because then we talked about it being more scaled down, but what is that going to look like? How does it address parking? So they'll be on the next agenda. And Jack, 261.
Yes, I've kept you apprised.
Yes.
By way of background, 261 Claremont abuts Peters Tract. We were interested in purchasing it about 5 or 6 years ago, I'd say. But it turns out that there was an oil tank on the property that had to be removed, and the owner of the property, which is an estate, refused to do it. So we killed the deal. In the meantime, we purchased 251 Claremont, which is next door and which also abuts Peters Tract. The idea was we would use those two properties for parking and access to Peters Tract, which is underutilized because of lack of access. Then at the end of last year, I think it was Diane Greenfield said that the oil tank had been removed. So the council directed me to reach out to the attorney to see whether they were still interested in selling it, which they were. So then we were proceeding, and then the mayor emailed me and said, "Are we sure the oil tank was removed?" So I emailed the attorney, and he wrote back and said it hasn't been removed because it would be cheaper to remove it after the house is demolished. So he proposed that the owner demolish the house and remove the oil tank, and that we reimburse him at closing for the demolition of the house. Then he sent me a follow-up email and said, no, he was wrong, that the oil tank had in fact been removed, but they were concerned that there may have been other leakage from the oil tank before it was removed. So he made a similar proposal at that point in time. So I then tried to reach out to the environmental consultant that New Jersey Land Conservancy used when they were handling this for us, and they were handling it the last time before they walked out on us. And I thought I checked to make sure that the engineer I dealt with was still there. And when I did, I discovered that 3 principals of the firm had been indicted for overbilling municipal clients for $850,000. Plus, they had a number of civil suits against them. So I guess we won't use them.
No.
Originally, I asked that this be on the agenda to authorize me to get 2 appraisals, which we'll need, because we had to go through this process now with Green Acres that you can't even retain appraisals from the list. You have to get their approval before you even do that. So I sent out 4 RFPs, and I got 3 back, and they're all over the map. So I'm going to send out some more RFPs. But I would like authorization to retain 2 of them. Norm Goldberg was the most reasonable at $2,000, which is what we usually pay.
Yeah.
So he'll probably be one of them, but I'd like to get somebody else with a reasonable number with your okay.
So
Do we actually buy the property?
Do we have to? We don't have to. I mean, we could
yeah,
cut this off right now. In my email to Nancy and the mayor, I said this property has a black cloud over it.
Well, I think
the history goes way back. They were going to sue the borough 12 years ago or so, and every quarter they sent us a threatening letter saying that we caused water damage to their property because water ran off the Dr.
Hollow.
Name.
Hollow.
Hollow property, and across a 50-foot right-of-way easement that we have into the Peters Tract, and that caused the drainage problems. Well, the water just passed over our right-of-way. We didn't have anything to do with it. So finally, they offered to sell it to us, And like I said, 5 years ago, we had a deal to buy it, but we backed out once they wouldn't remove the oil tank. But yeah, if you don't want to buy it, I mean, that makes it easy.
Well, I think the issue with it, I mean, why we wanted to buy it 5 years ago is if, we have the park at 251. It has a very narrow driveway that has very bad visibility if you're coming up Claremont Road. So the idea was that if with that property, you could make an in and out loop because it's got a great big front yard. And the house has been sitting there empty for, I think, 10 years. It's an eyesore. It looks terrible.
Uninhabitable.
Yeah. And it would just make that park more usable. Right now, there's not enough parking to have good programming there. If, recreation was talking about maybe doing a summer camp there or whatever, it's just really dangerous getting in and out of there. So that was the beauty of having that second lot.
Should we bring this back to rec then? Because I mean, I'm the rec liaison. I could talk to them and see if it's something that, are they planning on using 251 for?
They are. I mean, at least, I don't know who is.
They were.
Yeah. They actually want to use the house for some programming. And they were talking about possibly a summer camp there or a sleepover or something like that, with a hike. So yeah, and I know people that have gone and used the trails have mentioned how bad the driveway is.
I know, but I mean,
So I've used the trails there before, and I'll be honest, it's a half mile in and a half mile back. It's not really much of a trail. I would recommend, and I mean, this is my opinion, obviously, my opinion would be that, why would we pay for an appraisal on something if we're not sure we want to buy it? Now, if that's the direction everybody wants to go, the other worry I have is I don't want to buy anything that's got any kind of environmental problem. I don't want to get into a contract where we have to, where we find out all of a sudden, well, the oil's been leaching into very, very far down. We turn it over to the previous owner, and now all of a sudden we have to pay for the demolition of a house on property we can't buy. This just really feels like a bad deal. If there is a real great use compared to other borough property that we have to have this piece of property, then by all means spend the money on the attorneys. But I don't think we should spend the money on appraisal for a property unless we're absolutely certain it's what we want to spend our money on.
Well, it's part of the our Green Acres Fund. This would not be regular money.
Yeah, I know. I just don't think it's worth the money.
It would be Green Acres
funding.
Yeah, the open space fund.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be worth open space dollars. I'd rather reinvest the open space dollars into something else. I mean, I've been up there. I like to hike. It doesn't connect into anything else. So walking up Peters Track and back, it's a great path. But there's plenty of parking up there if you want to walk. And I'll give it, if you want to walk half mile up and half mile back on your own, it's a great little hike. But I don't think you need extra parking for the hike. Now, I can't speak to the rec use of the house there. I don't know if they would be able to use it or not. I know we talked about that when Diane was here a year ago, but I'd prefer not to pay for attorneys unless we're absolutely certain we want to pay for this.
A lot of it's wet too. I mean, there's only a limited area that can be used.
Mhm.
how much was the original appraisal? Like, what were we going to buy it
Back
for?
years ago, it was 700,000. I think we were paying for it then.
Yeah, something like that. What was it? 5 acres? 4 and almost 5. I think.
Yeah. Yes.
And what is the open space fund currently? It's like 5 to 6 million. Yeah.
Something like that. And that's the acquisition money, which we can't use for anything but acquisition.
Right.
I think it's about 5 million.
I mean, I'm interested what others think too. I would lean definitely, probably a little closer to Jay's position in that we've bought a lot of borough property. My supposition is that we should probably invest in getting those right. Unless we hear a really compelling reason. Like I think it might be worth it, Gina, to check with the rec committee, see how the situation has evolved and changed, making sure that any decision we make is done with, complete full perspective on things, but I don't think we should outlay funds until we know that that is a direction.
One
But-
problem with that is that we have like 3.5 months before the Green Acres money goes away. That's not the end of the world, but and I wouldn't blame you for not wanting to buy this property. It's certainly got issues, but I think a decision has to be made whether we want to at least get the appraisals. We don't even have a contract at this point in time, so there's nothing binding, but it's up to you all.
Can we
What's
ask
the
for,
Green Acres money? Maybe I'm missing that. I'm sorry.
well, they reimburse us for half? or-
Half, yes, half.
So whatever we pay for it, we get half back from Green Acres.
And what is Green Acres estate, or that's
State. It's part of DEP.
Yeah. Let's ask Recreation for a recommendation.
Okay.
I don't know if were they meeting this week or did they meet last week?
They're meeting next Tuesday, the 23rd.
After our meeting.
So it's after us. I wish they would change their meetings. They always meet the wrong times.
Yeah, maybe we can
But
now that we've got our working session stuff. I think actually Bob proposed that in the email, to be honest, but he didn't move.
Oh, okay. Well, can we just get his input maybe next week? They may have already discussed it. We don't know that.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, I can email you if that's you. Do you want me?
Okay, I'll put it on hold. We can decide next week whether it's a go or not.
Okay.
Okay. Nancy, is it okay if I email Bob?
I'm sorry, if you what?
Is it okay if I email Bob and just ask him about this since the meeting will be
Yeah.
after?
Sure.
All right. Then moving on to general business, we have a resolution for, these will be the regular resolutions, Highlands Stormwater Grant.
That is to apply for a $25,000 stormwater grant to offset the cost that we have to incur to get an MS4 permit. I don't know what MS stands for, but it's something the DEP is requiring us to get. And the money we hired at the beginning of 2023, and I guess we did it at reorg this year as well. We hired Stormwater Compliance Solutions, and as part of what we have committed to pay them, the grant application is part of that.
Okay. The bulk rock salt, I don't know if you looked at the quotes, but the Somerset County Co-op had a much better price than the Morris County Co-op. So it's great that we have the option of doing either one. So that was pretty clear what the choice was there. True Green, this was, I guess, from John McDowell, hiring them to continue with what we agreed to in terms of treating the different properties.
Yes, and Councilwoman Zamara asked me to get some more information about that, about treating the area around the polo grounds, and I did reach out to John, but he hasn't been able to get a response to me yet. So if you want to just I mean, I will get it before next week's meeting, so I'll make sure to get it to you, and then if you wanted to pull the resolution next week, we could do that.
Well, my thing was that it lists synthetic treatments around the pickleball courts. I guess that's the difference between this and last year. The rest is, I'm fine with, I guess. I mean, I'm not really fine with any synthetic treatments, but in an effort to compromise, we're allowing playing fields like Rose Bowl, Claremont, and Kiwanis. But I don't see why around the pickleball courts would require synthetic treatments. Like, that doesn't really make any sense. So if he has information on some kind of reason for that, I just think that's adding, toxic chemicals that were never there before and isn't really, potentially to me, isn't necessary. So.
And you're right by the stream there too.
And you're right by the stream and
the pool.
It's not that big an
and the
area.
pool.
It's really
And
not
the
that.
yeah, and the environmental commission just planted like a big, well, not big, but they planted like a native plants garden right there. So I wouldn't be touching that with synthetic treatments if I didn't have to. So I won't vote for it if that stays in, but I'm only one.
All right, let's,
I'll
yeah,
let you know
let's
what he
check
says.
with John. No, I'd back
I
you.
think we
Well, I
agree
don't
with
get to
you.
vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get to vote, but I would vote.
Yeah, I mean, when's the next Public Works meeting? Do we ask John then? But I guess we
Well,
need,
no, yeah, we have to approve this.
Yeah, we don't have one
the-
scheduled, but
yeah.
I reached out to him the other day, but I guess with the weather, he hasn't had a chance to get back to me. So I'm sure I'll hear from him for next week.
Can we just ask him to do organic there? I mean, just one.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Yeah.
ask him, unless there's some compelling reason not to.
Yeah.
Anybody have a
Yeah.
problem with not doing organic there?
at all.
No, so let's just see if he can change it.
Yeah, unless he has some compelling reason. but-
Really compelling reason that it's gotta be. I don't know why.
All right, I'll ask him. I'll let you know.
All right. Parker McKay, Jack, this is still our ongoing, never ending.
Yes, it's the
Yep.
Arsena saga. We still have 3 tax appeals pending. They also sued Anthony, Tom Trzecki, and Ed Kerwin, as well as the borough in the Bergen County Superior Court, claiming fraud. So we hired outside counsel Parker McKay. They got it transferred to Somerset County. The Somerset County judge dismissed it. They filed an appeal with the appellate division. The appellate division affirmed the Somerset County trial judge. Then they appealed to the Supreme Court, and the attorney missed the deadline for filing his brief. And this is just a petition for certification. You know how the Supreme Court works? It's like the U.S. Supreme Court. They don't take every case. U.S. Supreme Court calls it certiorari. New Jersey Supreme Court calls it certification. So you have to first petition for certification before they'll even hear the case, and that's where they are now. In any event, he missed his deadline for filing the brief in support of the petition for certification. Then he filed a motion to extend the deadline so he could file at a time. The Supreme Court took about 5 months and granted it, and said now the borough has to file a brief on the merits of the petition for certification as well as just in opposition to the extension. So as a result, Nancy spoke to John Gillespie from Parker McKay, and he estimates it'll be $10,000 to write that brief. We don't really have much choice. We can't let them win.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the story behind that.
Thank you. All right, another fire company. We've been getting a lot of those lately. That's great. So we'll appoint David at the next one. The tree recovery campaign approval request. This we do every year, I believe. Right, we've done this with the Green Team and the Environmental Commission as part of Earth Day, and so I don't think it. I mean, everybody okay with continuing that?
Yep.
Yes.
I think Dr. Hammond
Yeah.
said there was no cost, right?
No.
Right.
I think they give away the seedlings. So somebody
It
has-
says here he's not sure if we need to do a resolution or just a memo. So I'm okay with whatever they need. If it can be done before the next meeting, because it looks like there's a deadline of January 26th for him. Or for them
Oh,
to do
yeah.
this application.
Yeah, yeah,
And
we,
I think last year we didn't get them.
I think we told him, Anthony, I think we told him that our meeting was the 22nd. He said that was okay, right?
Yeah, I
Oh,
believe
well.
so, yes.
Do they actually need a resolution?
We thought it would probably be easiest so that in future years, it would just automatically come up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, there's an actual application. That they need documentation of approval. Okay, so we can do that at the next meeting. He'll have time. All right. The contract for the traffic planning and design, and this, was also parking, no? Isn't it parking and traffic?
It's mostly parking, even more than traffic,
Yeah,
because that's what we talked about was
Yeah.
parking. So this is the person who came to a couple meetings ago and made a presentation.
yes.
And so he provided us with a proposal, and I believe it is 6250. And that is to review all of our parking ordinances, which in some places are contradictory, and try and put a cohesive plan together for parking.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to make sure the traffic is in there with, those, like the picture you put together, Nancy, of all like the pending applications, things that we
Well,
need.
yeah, I did give that to him even before he came to the meeting, to talk to you. So he'll have to take all that into consideration.
Okay.
So is everybody okay with that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
actually, it's under the 6,600.
No, I'll put the resolution on.
No. Park Mobile, we're ready to move on that?
We are ready to move. The contract went back and forth between Jack and them a few times. And if you're, I mean, we already talked about it several times, so this is just for you to, sign the contract. And we can get that underway. We've already sold our parking decals for the train station. Now, this is only for the train station, even though we said to encompass all of the possible parking areas, just in case in the future you choose to put a parking meter in other locations that you own. They're included in here just so that we get the lower price at some point if you choose to do them in the future. But this one is only right now for the train station, and we've already sold our parking permits for the annual parking permits. So this will pretty much take place of the parking meter that's there that hasn't worked in a couple months, I understand, because we haven't gotten any money in there. So I feel like that it's perfect. It goes perfectly, with the parking study that we're doing at the same time. So if he recommends that you expand parking meters or whatever, we have the issue with the valet parking. That goes very well together with the Park Mobile contract that you're hopefully going to adopt.
Yeah. What are the hours for the Park Mobile and stuff? Because the signs are up in the train station. So I actually parked the other day and I was like, oh, I forgot. We have to pay for parking now, right? Because everything else it's not been working. So I had the app and I went to go, download it and whatever. And then I was like, I don't even know what the times are. Like there was no, like the signage, I guess, wasn't so great.
Yeah. Well, the sign, there shouldn't be any signs up yet.
No, it's not installed yet, is it?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Oh,
It's not. We haven't kicked it off yet because you didn't sign the
No.
contract. So I'm not sure why they put the signs up already, but I will check.
Those are probably the old signs.
No, they're Park Mobile signs.
Huh.
I'll ask him to take those down because we told them that we needed some time to get all of this in place. They weren't supposed to put anything up until, at least next month, if not later than that. So
Maybe we just cover them like the DOT did with the crosswalk.
Right.
yeah,
Put a garbage bags over them.
So they started doing it before it was approved?
No, they put the signs up.
apparently they put the signs up. So I'll check into that.
Presumptuous.
Yeah.
Hey, Anthony, how many annual parking passes or how many commuter parking passes do we sell? Do you know?
Last year we sold 50. Way back we used to sell like a little over 100, but that's gone down over the past few years, and it's about 50 now that we sold. If you go by last year.
Okay, thank you.
We used to have a waiting list. Remember?
Pre-COVID.
Yeah. And this is just the right side of the station. that those go work on, right?
Oh, Park
Or-
Mobile?
well,
Um,
the south side. Is it south?
well,
South.
eventually it will apply to the entire, and to the entire lot because we won't have the decals anymore like next year. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get it together enough before they had to be sold in December. But going forward, they'll cover the entire lot. So people will be able to buy an annual permit next year through Park Mobile.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I like the new passes too. Now you have the ones you hang on your mirror. I think instead of they're not stick on, like you don't have to stick it onto your car now, which is nice. Okay, recycling contract with the county. We renew that every year. I think it went up, not outrageously, did it?
Anthony, do you have that?
Yeah, it went up from $26.70 per household to $27 per household. So it went up 30 cents per household.
Okay. They pick up today? I didn't notice. Anybody get there? They did? I don't think, I
Yeah.
think they missed me.
I did.
And the annual stream cleanup, we do this as well every year. We usually do 3 sites, I think, in town with the Raritan Headwaters, and they ask for a donation. As a municipality, we are not allowed to make donations. So instead, what we do is have them invoice us for the materials, the bags, the gloves, and those kind of things. So we're actually paying for something rather than donating. But it's really, we've had a lot of good volunteers turn out. Amazing how much garbage we pick up out of the stream beds. And it's, yeah, I don't know why people think that it's okay to throw things out the windows. But everybody good with that? To approve that?
Yes.
All right. We didn't have any correspondence, right? We don't have unfinished business. I wanted to ask, I know we have our new engineer, which is exciting to have an in-house. Just 2 things, if we could ask him to check on, is the Boylan Terrace walkway. Because I'm not sure where Doug left that, and I'd like a status report on that. Because, I get a lot of questions from people in town about where we are on that project.
Actually, I think Jack could probably answer that better because we were waiting for some easements, temporary easements.
No, that was a different project. That was the sidewalk, right?
Oh, are you talking about the train station one?
Yes, goes from Boylan Terrace down to
Oh,
the train station.
okay, I can tell you that.
Oh, good.
Right. So still with the feds, we still have to wait to hear back from them. But Tony, the new engineer, has to go for training in order to be able to work with them to carry out, to enact the grant. So it's a big deal. So we're setting him up with the training.
Okay.
If there's more to that, I will let you know at the next meeting, but that's the update as I understand it.
How long is the
Alright.
training? Is that going to take him months to complete or?
No. I think it's like a class, like an all-day class kind of thing.
I remember when Doug was talking about it in Public Works. It's not
Yeah.
a huge deal.
Right. Yeah, Doug went not that long ago, I think.
Hmm.
So because Tony's taking over, Tony has to.
Yeah.
do-
Got it.
All right. That was my only unfinished business. Anybody else have anything they
You
want?
said there were 2 things. 2 things you
Oh,
wanted.
you know what I was thinking? The bids for the pavilion. I believe the last Doug told us they were supposed to go out in December, and I don't know if they did.
We actually asked them to hold off on those because John McDowell said that we needed to delay the work until school was out because of all the work they need to do with the utilities in that area. they don't want to interfere with school. So we talked to the
Okay.
engineer who's handling, I believe it's Suburban, and we asked them to hold off on that. So I think Tony's having a meeting with them just to go over that project soon, but we did ask him to hold off putting the bid out in December. Because then you have to award it, and there's only so
Right.
long before they want to get started. So I'll find out when it's gonna go out.
Oh, great.
Not
Thank
to
you.
throw a wrench into this, but if we're gonna be putting utilities in for that, and then we're talking about lights, are they gonna do similar work at the same time? Or is it gonna have to be two separate projects? I just don't want them like, if we have to if we have to cut open the ground to put utilities in, I granted utilities can mean multiple things. I guess I'm just thinking like electric, but.
Also
Um,
the,
Cause if they're
sewer
gonna
line.
light that field, I'm just wondering,
I
do we
think,
wanna do we wanna
Christine,
think about that a little bit?
we talked about it at Public Works last year. Do you recall off the top of your head? It was, I think we were putting down the eventual infrastructure to allow to do that, so we wouldn't have to redig it twice, even if we didn't put in the lights right away. Do you remember?
Thought it was electric and sewer that are going in.
well,
Just
this
electric
is
sewer?
sewer, electric, and gas, I guess.
Yes?
Oh, okay, okay.
So just a thought, you're not gonna need, I wouldn't think you'd need sewer and gas for the lighting of the field over there, if that's what we end up doing eventually, but I just, you might, the electric, you obviously would, so just a thought.
I mean, it's pretty significant. I think it's over $250,000 just to do the utilities for the pavilion. And I believe that the lights for the field were like a phase 2 of this project.
That's right.
Right, so I don't think that we included that as part of this.
Yeah, you're right.
So the field lights, the way it was explained to us in Public Works that Al is describing is that the conduit is placed. So that refers to like I guess an infrastructure that would allow us to just kind of put a fixture up
Oh, okay.
without having to run what's called the conduit. So
Okay, good,
that's
that makes sense.
that would prevent any type of ripping up or destroying what's already there.
Right, I
That's
think the
why
conduit is
we
like,
did that.
Yeah.
I think it's like the tube that the wires would go through for
That's what I was
the,
referring to, yeah.
That makes
so that
sense.
doesn't have to be dug up again, but they're not gonna be put in at the same time.
Yeah, no, I would, yeah, I don't want to delay one for the other. I was just thinking about like, if we trench the exact same trench a year later, we may just have wished we'd done it all at once, is the point. So it sounds like that was covered. That's great.
And Nancy, but from as far as delaying the build out, was it the school's request? Is it our assumption that we need to wait for the schools to be out? Like, should we talk to them instead of making an assumption, or?
I think I recall that John talked to them. I will check on that. But I think John and the police chief made the decision together. I believe it was in conjunction with the school, but I'll check.
All right, new business, request from Harrington Construction to use our gravel lot for fill dirt. What are they paving? That they need, or where's the fill dirt for?
I believe this is to do a water main work for New Jersey American Water. They
Ah.
have to remove fill, they need a place to keep it until they finish the work, and it's about 3 weeks. And so they requested across the street. Is that right, Anthony? Is that everything?
Yeah. What are they gonna do when we finally have our affordable housing there? Everybody uses that for equipment and storage and
You're
interesting.
gonna have to figure it out.
Yeah,
Not to, so do they pay us, or is this just like they get to borrow it?
No, they don't pass.
Do we have any
No.
worry that the dirt there, they said clean, but do we have any worry that the dirt they're putting on there might drop something into the ground that we have to deal with?
With the hiking trail right there, right?
yeah.
And the build of the affordable housing and when that comes.
Because I look, I don't know how this has been done
Well,
in the
they
past.
sign a hold harmless, don't they? That if they screw anything up, they have to
Okay.
pay to
Because this
clean
isn't
it
a
up.
Bernardsville project, so they're going to be trucking dirt from where the project's in Far Hills, right?
Is it?
I thought the project was out of
Yes, let me-
Bernardsville.
let me see where. Yeah, it said that they're completing the water main improvements along 202 in Far Hills. Yes,
Well, then
So
why
they're
don't
going
they
to be
find a
trucking dirt
place
from
in
Far
Far
Hills
Hill?
into Bernardsville and then back again.
right. They're gonna go dip back and forth. Yes, that's right.
So why don't they find a lot in Far Hills? Wouldn't that be a lot
Hmm.
more sensible?
Less traffic.
Less trucks up and down 202?
At the very
You
least, they
can
should
tell
start
them.
with their borough, right? I mean, it's benefiting Far Hills.
I mean, you're not obligated to let them use it.
Yeah, maybe it's time to start saying no.
Yeah, in some ways, like if Far Hills came to us and said, we have an issue, we could be neighborly.
Nowhere to
Like,
put it.
yeah. But I mean, they should at least go to Far Hills if it wasn't skirt catch, Jay.
I'm like, they,
Hmm.
yeah, like, I mean, they have the Far Hills train station, all that parking in the back, nobody's ever there.
We'll
Hmm,
tell
all
them
right.
to check with Far
Yeah.
Hill.
Yep. National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, 5-star water restoration grant.
Yes, I'm very excited about this, actually. This is a grant that we would like to apply for to get money for the dam removal. This particular grant is $60,000 and there is a match. It's not clear. We believe it's 25%. But we are working with Rippled Waters was the engineer
Yeah.
who we're working with to remove the dam. And this woman, Mary Paste Goldman, I believe, is the engineer who's been working on it. And Tony and I met with her the other day, and she gave us a list of grant opportunities that the total potential is $3.3 million in grants.
Wow.
And she said that the high likelihood of grant money is $1.99 million. And if
Wow.
you recall, the cost of the dam was estimated to be removal was $2.3 million. So so this one for 60,000 is due next week. So I asked her to give me an estimate for her to apply for it, and it was $2,000, which is a great return on investment because she said we're very likely to get it. And she said, in fact, we're very likely to get the $1.5 million USDA grant, as well as some of these others that are 450,000, 25,000, 15,000. There's 100,000 for the Highlands. Again, a total of 3.3 million, but 1.9 that we are likely to get. So, I mean, if we can get all of them and you don't really have to spend any of that $2.3 million that you already allocated, it's a no-brainer. So, so I just wanted you to authorize her applying for the grant, authorize her applying for the grant and applying for the grant itself. And then as we get closer, we're gonna do these for all of the, 5 or
Yeah.
6 other grants there are.
Yeah, terrific.
Okay.
It's interesting because I think when we talked about the dam in the first place, there are no grants to repair the dam, but there are a lot of grants to remove it. So, because it's so much better for the water, the streams, the wildlife, the fish. So, okay. Anything else? I think we're good. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? And we will not be coming out, I believe. Will we, John? Jack? Okay.
I'll move to go to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have
Yeah, thanks for the public to
Stay
sit
safe
here
out
with
there.
us. Thank you.
I'll stop the recordings and